Well, happy Father's Day, everybody. Beautiful Sunday. It's hot, it's sunny. And I'm a new dad too, because I now have a little baby rescue puppy, Holly the Legal Beagle. So my first Father's Day. Hey guys, I've been asked a number of questions about what are the kinds of things that I've been referencing to that people that are otherwise law-abiding citizens can get themselves in trouble for. And we talked a lot about kids before, but somebody asked me the question, what about us adults? And it's a great question. I've basically narrowed down three areas of my experience as an assistant prosecutor, as the head county prosecutor, as a criminal defense attorney, where otherwise law-abiding adults are caught up in the criminal justice system or for some sort of offense. And they're really shocked when this happens because they don't believe that they've done anything wrong. So the first area that we see all the time is child endangerment. And there couldn't be a better time than today on Father's Day with the heat the way it is to talk about some examples of cases we've seen where people are actually charged with the endangerment statute. It's a very broad statute. There's not like it says you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. There's very big, broad terms. And as one court noted, it's largely how society and prosecutors perceive a particular thing that may endanger the welfare of a child. So that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So what does this endangerment statute say? It basically says that if you are a parent, a guardian, or a caregiver of a child, that you have a responsibility to the health, safety, and welfare of that child, and that the child is not abused or neglected. Now, of course, anybody would say, I would never abuse or neglect my child. But let's get into the definitions of what abuse and neglect are. A failure, essentially, that of any kind of supervision that can be considered negligent or reckless. That is, it's a known risk, it's confronted, and you essentially don't do anything about it. And that can be a lot of different things that can be argued there. Makes a child abused if their physical, emotional, well-being or mental well-being are harmed or risked to anyone who is under the age of 18. Wow, what does this mean in the real world? Well, a lot of times lawyers like to define a thing by the kind of conduct that has already been prosecuted for this. So I've actually ticked off ones that I've either dealt with in my career as a prosecutor or as a defense lawyer and have come about in my media career about various issues. And it is true, folks. There are sometimes I believe it's a little excessive. And it really did come down to me ultimately when I was the head county prosecutor to make the calls as to what would be considered child endangerment affecting the health, safety, and welfare of a child, abuse and neglect, as opposed to not. And so some of the a lot of times it may come down to what the injury caused is, but that is less and less being the philosophical model of prosecutors. Many times now people are being prosecuted for things that the child wasn't really injured, but there was a risk of injury. So it's getting really confusing out there, really tough. Leaving a child in a car. Okay, this is one, it depends on a lot of facts. How old is the child? What was the reason a child was in the car? Is it an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old? Or are you talking about an infant? Well, there was a case in New Jersey that went all the way to the Supreme Court that said that a woman in a very low crime related area, mom, who left her 19-month-old baby in a car seat and went in to do some quick shopping because she didn't have any ability to have the kid cared for. She left the kid inside the car. She was arrested for child endangerment and neglect and abuse, and went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that every caregiver, parent, and guardian owes a minimal level of care to avoid risky situations that could harm or impair the physical, mental, emotional well-being of a child, that is someone under the age of 18. And that court found that even though there was no harm to the child, and that the mere fact that you leave an infant in a car for that period of time, or any child, a young child for that matter, there could be kidnapping, they could be abducted, there could be a carjacking, and that by definition, that is child endangerment. Where do we also see this? Well, I've had these cases and they're heart-wrenching. In the summertime, parents who may be at a party having a couple of drinks or not even drinking, and they're really not watchful of what their kid is doing. And God, it happens every summer where a kid winds up at the bottom of a pool and unfortunately dies or is seriously injured. That is definitely a case in which child endangerment charges I have seen have been brought. Kids left at home. Well, how old are they? How long were they left at home? Why were they left at home? Do they have access to guns or access to even prescription medications? These have all been the bases upon which child endangerment charges have been filed. And again, one jurisdiction may file it and another jurisdiction may not. Yours truly, personally, when we had cases where people lost their child because they backed up in a driveway and ran over their, if that happens all the time, ran over the child, or the pool drowning scenarios. Personally, I felt in my prosecutorial discretion that person was living a life sentence anyway. And we weren't doing anything to deter the conduct by compounding and by putting somebody in state prison for something like that. That was my philosophy. Many other prosecutors had a different philosophy. So it really is dependent on how the prosecutor perceives it. A DUI with a child in a car, or drinking even with a child in a car, you're definitely going to get tagged with a child endangerment for that. And now, as you've been watching my other videos, even being under the influence of prescription medication lawfully prescribed, and you're taking it, you've never had a side effect of that medication, but if you do, and you're charged with being under the influence of a lawfully prescribed medication, and there's a child in the car, you could be hit with that as well. Did you know that maybe having a domestic violence spat with your wife, when I say domestic violence, a coarse language, offensive language, any kind of physicality in front of the child has been deemed to be child endangerment because it recklessly impairs the safety of the child emotionally. So that is an area, be very careful. It's very broad. What does it mean? I don't know. It's like they said about pornography in the United States Supreme Court decision. It's hard to define child endangerment, but you know it when you see it. But then again, there are many instances in which one prosecutor may see it in one way, one cop sees it one way, and other prosecutors and cops see it the other. The number two way that people are in the summertime blues that they get charged is animal cruelty. Now, the laws in New Jersey have gotten very strict, and they're getting strict across the nation. So I'm going to go quick through this, but we have new laws with regard to, did you know that you're required to have your pet in a seatbelt or safety harness, or at least restrained in your vehicle? You know, when you see these people driving down the road and the dog's got the head out the car window or whatever, that's a violation of the restraint law. And that law is in place so the drivers don't get distracted, and cops and police are more and more being trained on issuing tickets for this, because it's not only an unsafe condition for the driver and the people that are out on the road, but it's also an unsafe condition for the animal. Hey, our legal beagle, Holly, she's in like a car restraint that you can't even imagine. It's an excellent product, and it buckles are in and it's seatbelted in. So under the law in New Jersey, you have to have them restrained. And if there's injury to the animal, or even if there's not injury to the animal, do you know you could face up to 6 months in jail for that offense? Click it, or ticket, or click it, whatever that campaign is. Well, that's only a $46 penalty for a human being, but it's actually punishable by jail time for an animal. So be careful with that, because I'm telling you, the cops are being told to go out there and issue tickets for this, for the safety of the community. Did you know that also Governor Christie passed, the legislature passed, and Governor Christie signed into law, the animal cruelty with regard to leaving your pet out in inclement weather. And what is that defined as? Below freezing, or if it reaches 90 degrees. They're not allowed to be out overnight. They're not allowed to be unsupervised, tethered. You have to take care and responsibility that they're hydrated, as well as making sure you never leave a pet in a car ever in the summertime, because they can very quickly have brain damage and death within a minute under those circumstances. So all areas in which we've seen people be charged, and they're very offended by that. Well, my dog wasn't injured. My dog wasn't hurt. I'm a good pet owner. I'm a good parent. You hear it over and over again. I'm like, well, this is what the laws are, and people can perceive it differently, but nevertheless, be careful, or you could find yourself on the wrong end of the law. And of course, the other one is the mother of all things that just keeps on going. That's a scourge that we need to stop, which is DUI. Don't ever even have a drink and get into a vehicle. They're so easy today, and prosecutors and police have no sympathy for the idea that you couldn't get from one place to another when you have things like Uber or designated drivers and all sorts of options not to get into a vehicle. I can't say this enough. I actually have a friend on Facebook who has suffered a catastrophe of a DUI, individual who, they not only kill people, but maim people for their lives. And there's just no excuse for it. And as a prosecutor, despite the fact that I hate to see an otherwise law-abiding citizen, if you were going to be under the influence, you were going to pay a price. And if you injured somebody or killed somebody, that price is decades in state prison. So, I mean, despite how much we talk about it, it still goes on. Folks, those are the three areas. Child endangerment, yes. Child abuse, yes, you got to be careful, and it's very subjective as to what that is and what it isn't. DUI, the scourge that continues to go on, and your pet safety are the three areas that good, otherwise law-abiding people find themselves on the wrong end of the law. Hey, I really appreciate you guys following me, and my call to action is simple. Please share these videos if you can. Join the Bianchi Law Talk fan page if you have not done that already. And on YouTube, there's a link underneath there. On YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, my new YouTube channel. I need 1,000 followers on Facebook and YouTube by the end of this summer. I'm asking for your help, not only to join, but to share it out if you find value in these videos. And also there's a link underneath there to New Jersey 101.5, where I actually was commenting as a legal analyst on these issues with regard to child endangerment. And there's also a segment in there about pet safety. So you may find that interesting. Thank you very much. Have a great Father's Day. And we'll be back next week on Sunday at 10:30 with another Bianchi Law Talk live Facebook post. Thanks so much. Bye.